Nearly 3 weeks after flooding in the Hill Country and Central Texas that left more than 130 people dead, state lawmakers are holding their first hearing on the topic today. CBS Austin's Andrew Lemparski has been following the hours-long discussions at the state capitol and brings us some of the changes being recommended.
You could feel the gravity of today's hearing, even in the halls outside. Some Texans traveled for miles to hear from state leaders about what can be done in response to the July 4th floods and save lives in the future. It's a phrase Texas Department of Emergency Management Chief Nim Kidd kept repeating Wednesday.
We're better than that. We can do better than that, and we need to.
We're better than that, folks.
During a rundown of the timeline of events in Kerr County on July 4th, Kidd pointed out the room for improvement among state and local emergency responders.
And I had my radio with me, and I asked to be able to talk to them on theirs. But their San Antonio radio doesn't work in that footprint.
Kidd made a number of recommendations to the House and Senate Disaster Preparedness committees. The focus, improving how state and local authorities can better work together during a disaster scenario.
Do we need a better system for warning? Yes.
Yes.
What does that look like? I don't know.
Representatives from the Texas Department of Transportation, Texas Department of Public Safety, and Texas Parks and Wildlife also answered to lawmakers.
This is not a normal attaboy of the agencies and what went right. This is a hearing to try to figure out how 137 people died and why we've been convened.
Top 2 lessons learned going forward, what would you say those are?
Wednesday's testimony included a long list of possible solutions, from post-disaster volunteer check-in systems to stronger credentialing rules for local emergency managers. The options for lawmakers to tackle will likely go beyond just a 30-day session. Many are already referencing addressing them in 2027.
I don't ever want to go through this again. Sure. I know none of you do, and we don't want the heartbreak for any other families in Texas. We've got to figure this out.
The committees are set to meet again next week, but not here in Austin. They'll be traveling to Kerrville to hear directly from local leaders and people who were impacted by the July 4th floods. Reporting in the state capitol, Andrew Lemparski, CBS Austin News.
We need to put a procedure in place that tries to eliminate human error.
Wrapped up the first day of hearings addressing the July 4th weekend flooding that left more than 130 people dead. The questions were sharp and the exchanges were emotional. CBS Austin's Abigail Velez is live tonight at the Capitol, as what we're learning is raising some serious concerns about how warnings are sent and who is responsible for sounding the alarm. Abigail?
Absolutely, Walt. Now, for hours, lawmakers pressed emergency management and local leaders trying to understand why so many people died when the state had warned for years that this could happen. But the most shocking moments came from testimony about what procedures didn't exist and what didn't happen.
We as a state are better than that, and we can do better.
It's one of the deadliest floods in Texas history, and today, state lawmakers got their first chance to ask why. The answers were often hard to hear.
There is no system in place today to ensure that County Judge X or Mayor Y or Emergency Manager Z is getting the same information that we are getting from the National Weather Service.
You do see the problem with that, right?
I do.
The state's top emergency chief, Nim Kidd, says Texas does not have a central flood siren system, so there's no guarantee local officials get the same alerts as the state. Lawmakers say that gap may have cost life-saving hours, and so did the lack of a clear chain of command.
At 5:32 a.m., another rescue team arrives in Kerr County and asks, who's in command? The dispatcher team says they don't have an incident command. Can you advise who's running command? The team asks, how do you coordinate the efforts?
Then the focus shifted to local responsibility.
Who was behind the wheel in the middle of the night in Kerr County that should have been the person that was up being prepared to sound the alarm?
I cannot answer that.
The Upper Guadalupe River Authority manages the river which flooded Kerrville and has played a role in flood planning for decades.
I think anybody would have done anything in their power to prevent the devastation if it had been predicted.
After a deadly flood in 1988, the UGRA raised taxes to build a flood warning system, but years later, the system fell apart. When a recent engineering study called for a $1 million upgrade, the UGRA didn't fund it. Instead, they lowered taxes, accumulated millions in reserves, and let the system lapse.
And that's pretty de minimis to be talking about all the lives that were lost on July the 4th.
I understand.
One current UGRA board member, Dick Eastland, was also a camp owner. He died in this month's floods in Kerr County. The Houston Chronicle reports his board voted to reject a state grant just 2 years ago, a grant that could have helped fund the upgrade.
This decision is just pathetic. I don't have any other way to put it.
That was Abigail Velez reporting. Next week, lawmakers will travel to Kerrville, where flood survivors and local officials will get their first chance to speak publicly. In an interview with CNN, the Kerr County Sheriff says the county official responsible for coordinating emergency response was likely asleep at the wheel at home during the morning of the July 4th floods. The National Weather Service began forecasting the threat of flood and flash flooding early as Thursday morning. This is what the sheriff had to say.
What was happening on that day? Was he working? Were you getting?
Well, you got to remember this happened. What started, anywhere from 1, 2, 3 in the morning. I'm sure he was at home asleep at that time.
He was home asleep.
Yes.